Welcome, everyone. And now it is time for our segment where we interview guests. And today we have a wonderful guest. I'm going to start off with his introduction, and then we'll get into the questions. SiR is an artist teacher with a professional background in behavioral sciences and the entertainment industry. He has advised, interviewed, and promoted recording artists signed to independent and major record labels. His articles, reviews, and opinion pieces have appeared in publications such as Essence Magazine and Upscale Magazine. He currently hosts and curates the long-running literature program Let's Talk About Books with Reggie at the Carl-Schurz-Haus. He also hosts a hip-hop radio program called Voyage To Gandahar, the Hip Hop Network. Thank you for coming on to the show, Reg. I should call you SiR. How are you?
Hey, thank you so much, Rico, Patrick. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's just a pleasure to finally be here and have our discussion finally face to face. I'm excited. I'm doing fine, you know. I'm still adjusting to the change in time, you know. You wake up and your clock says 5, but you know maybe it's still 6. So I'm still trying to adjust to that extra hour of sleep. But it's funny. I mean, it gets dark really, really quickly, and so around like 8, I'm like starting to nod off. But I don't want to go to bed too early because then I'll have to wake up in the middle of the night, you know. So yeah. But other than that, I'm good. I love the autumn. It's one of my favorite times of the year, you know. Pumpkin soup, Halloween. I enjoy it very much. How about you, sir? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. This has been great to get restarted with our Learneezee cast. We had a little hiatus there for a while, but we're back into the mix and the swing of things, and we're really excited to have someone as dynamic as you with a very interesting background. So I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. And Pat, how are you?
I'm feeling the same struggles as Reggie. We're both in Freiburg. It's gotten darker here much faster now because of daylight savings and so on. Actually, no, we got an hour back, but it's still dark. It doesn't help a hell of a lot. But I'm surviving it, and I'm looking forward to a fun winter. Halloween just passed. Not too crazy Halloween. I took a little time off to go take a trip to Leipzig. But we'll talk about that in another part of the show, about life in Germany.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and jump right into the questions, Reg. So as a language learning and just a learning podcast in general, we always like to ask our guests where they're from and the languages they speak. So do you mind answering those questions? Where are you from and what languages do you speak?
Sure. I was originally born in Virginia and I grew up in Philadelphia. Shout out to Philly. What's up? The tri-state area back in the States, Throughout my travels, I've spent time, of course, in Canada, and I've gone over to China. I spent some time over in China. So you have to at least be able to get by, with beginner level Mandarin. It's a very challenging language as a whole. And of course, now that I live in Germany, I'm learning German. And I would say I'm probably somewhere in the middle between an elementary and early intermediate level. But, it's all good. I think that traveling provides you with an education that you can not get unless you actually leave the U.S. and go abroad, see what's out here, and, meet all these very, very interesting people. But yes, it's been quite a journey. And of course, I got to give a shout out to my old Spanish teacher, Mrs. G. So we can also add some high school and college Spanish in the mix as well.
Yeah, I also took high school and college Spanish.
There you go. See?
So I feel connected there. That I think all of us in America thought we'd probably end up somewhere in Mexico having to speak Spanish or something like that, just for vacation or something like that. But you and I, Reg, are two rare ones that ended up in Europe.
Correct.
And Germany particularly. Yeah. What got you interested in moving to Germany in the first place? Because it's been a while now. How long now have you been in Germany for?
Well, my first official trip
years?
over here was in late 2006. So I came over here, then I went back, and then I came back again, and I just took several trips. But I would say I've definitely been floating in and out Freiburg, southwestern Germany, probably, since late 06.
I know. Yeah. I have personal reasons for having stayed. I've been here since 2011. My partner is from Freiburg, so that's my connection.
Correct.
What, your partner is now obviously here, from here and so on. Was that part of the inspiration to stay longer, or are there other things? Because I don't like to just say it's just because of my partner, because there's so many other great things about living in
I,
Europe.
I think she is definitely one of the main reasons why I stayed. I originally came here because my father served in the American military, and he was
Oh,
stationed in Gießen up there near Frankfurt back in the early 80s. And he just had such a huge connection to this country, came back and, to the US. I didn't go with him the first time. So I didn't live with my father while he was in Germany. But when he came back in the early
oh,
80s, man, he was so just elated. He was a changed man, if you will,
oh, wow.
and was here, of course, serving his country, and
Hmm.
spoke so highly of the culture, of the people. The fact that my father told me that I needed to get out of the U.S. to learn something about, about the world, that there
Hmm.
was something bigger than the U.S. out there. It just kind of sparked my interest and my curiosity, and it really made me want to just go out and see and explore, get my Marco Polo on, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly,
And
exactly. Yeah.
so I eventually just took the leap. I
Hmm.
didn't come here really, to be honest with you, for any specific reason other than
Hmm.
curiosity.
I want to continue on with the
Brilliant.
questions. And doing research to learn more about you and your work, Reg, I see that you have used hip hop as therapy, and that's not something that I commonly hear as being used. So I was wondering if you could tell us more about what that looks like and how it works. How do you use hip hop as therapy?
I mean, well, it kind of started very early on, when I was a kid, I was really, really deep into the culture. And I spent a lot of time with my cousin who, is also an actor, model, artist, MC. He's, the triple threat. Because we spent so much time together, that was kind of like a paradigm for me. This kind of, although we're cousins, I was far more like a big brother in his life. And, when I went off to school, University of Rochester in upstate New York, I really was trying to figure out how could I integrate hip hop culture into formally into the social sciences, because I saw the connection right away. I basically started. I did an internship at the Mount Hope Family Center, in my junior and senior year while studying psychology. And it was just very, very evident that art could be used as a way to build bridges with young people. And so I basically just I built on top of the foundation that I'd started with my cousin. You have to remember that hip hop initially started out as outreach. You if you take it back in the day, you can pull up video and you see, you know, the father of hip hop, DJ Kool Herc, aka Clive Campbell, driving around the South Bronx, with his huge like speakers sticking out of his convertible. And the fact that he was kind of trying to get, kids to come and follow him and do something besides get caught up in the gangs. And for me, it was always like that. It just always seemed that the culture was really, really about trying to save the lives of young people. Like, why not do something with all that energy? Because keep in mind that in our neighborhoods, most of us, unfortunately, we were raised by single mothers. So consider the fact that statistically 70% of Black American households for a long time were overseen by women. So, what kind of father figure do you have coming through? And you can either choose the gang leader or you could choose the MC. For a long time, there was just the gang leader, the pimp, and the da 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 da. And then after a while, the MC, the B boy, the graffiti artist, the DJ caught the young person's attention and said, okay, let's go in that direction. So, I just wanted to always stick within that paradigm and celebrate that tradition and keep that alive. So that's my end of it.
And the therapy itself, were you conducting workshops or how were you engaging with the youth in regards to teaching them how hip hop could be beneficial to them? Was there any particular, mechanism or vehicle that you were using specifically?
Well, yeah, there were two. I mean, the workshops, of course, that was definitely one way. Um, I might, for example, be contracted to go to a school and, give a workshop where we go through writing raps and, lyrics and so forth. Also,
Mm-hmm.
simple movements, simple, different dance movements, and just kind of giving them the taste of, what it takes to be a hip hop artist, but most of all, to be conscious of self. The whole point of therapy was to have kids hold themselves responsible and accountable for their own actions. But
Mhm.
the whole point of the workshops and the whole point of taking some of these young people and working with them, on a one on one place is building those relationships. So
Mhm.
to me, that's what it all comes down to. Are you willing to
Sounds
see
great.
who that person is and find out for yourself who is that child? Make no assumptions, ask questions. And don't treat that
Mhm.
8-year old like an 8-year old. That person might be 18. You don't know.
Yeah,
Age is, you know what
you
I'm
don't know.
saying? That 8-year old
Get
might
to
be
know him.
have more game, might have more life experience than you. So take the
It's
time
true.
to hear what the kids have to say.
Yeah, they might have seen more than you would ever want to see.
For
So that's
sure.
always a
For
scary
sure.
thing and so
Yes.
I like that you bring out that point that the therapy is to allow the young people to have an outlet in the sense for things that might be affecting them and not allow it to become something that could be violent and cause issues with their friends and neighbors in their community. So that's great, Reg. Are you doing similar things here in Freiburg? Are you? We're talking. I'm trying to lead into some projects that we're talking about, but I'd like you to share, well, what you're up to at the moment. Yeah, if you would like to do
In
that.
Freiburg?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I have a monthly book club that meets over at the Carl-Schurz-Haus, um, where we basically discuss literature. And so I basically introduce the American classics, whether or not we're talking about, Jack London, Call of the Wild, whether or not we deal with Virginia Woolf or any well-known author,
Oh,
Steinbeck, so many different kinds of artists or authors, I should say, that
cool.
we've covered in the last few years. I've basically been curating and introducing literature for the last 10 years. And so we
Wow.
usually meet bi-monthly on
Okay.
a Friday night. And because of COVID, we've had to conduct most of these discussions online via Skype, or I should say, or Zoom.
Oh, wow. Oh, Zoom. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I
so
have that.
they'd have to
And I'm
register
also doing
for
some
shows.
hip hop workshops here, over
Yeah.
at Rotek Gymnasium. I've been to quite a few schools. I did something for the U.S.
Mhm.
State Department. The State Department caught one of my performances at the Carl-Schurz-Haus German American Institute back in 2012, and they were like, "Okay, listen, we need you to come to Frankfurt. We need you to come out, to the east and
Oh, great.
set up some workshops as well because young people, especially teachers, and this is the one thing that I've learned:
Mhm.
if teachers get down with hip hop culture, you would be surprised at how fast the students feel liberated to say we like hip hop, because a lot of people only
Exactly.
really understand it on a very surface level. They listen to the
Yeah.
music. The music is like, okay, all right, so let's break these lyrics down. Why do you
Yeah.
connect with that particular MC? What is that?
Yeah.
What is that MC trying to sort of share with you? Is there a message in there? How does that relate to your own personal life? Because unless you can see yourself through another person's lens or in another person's life, it's very, very difficult for you to feel that you have anything in common with that person.
Oh,
And so then
got it.
the typical stereotype is that, okay, we got these black rap guys right here. They're probably gang banging, I'm sure, you know. And I can understand that. I can understand how the capitalist machine has pushed that.
Mm,
So let's
mm,
talk
mm.
about that. If you don't like hip hop, if there's something you don't understand, if you think it's, if there's a misogynist tone to it or whatever, let's talk about that.
It's great. You're so active, Reg, and I want to give you a chance to conclude on what your current activities are here in Freiburg. You can continue from you were speaking about the workshops. How can they find you? How can they find you in the various areas? We know about Carl-Schurz-Haus. Are there any other connections that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this month, as you know, we are featuring special
Mhm.
rap therapy course that's being offered. And basically, I would like to invite people to meet me one on one, perhaps at their favorite cafe here in Freiburg. We're going to be exploring, we're going to be exploring how ESL, how English as a second language is used in the streets and in the language of comedy through great comedians
Yes,
such as George Carlin, Richard
yes,
Pryor, Patrice O'Neill. You don't laugh at things that you can't relate to or that you've never heard or that you can't identify with. So
yeah,
that's why we've decided to put together this special course through Learneezee,
yes.
and it's
Learn.
basically going to be going on the entire month of November. So
Yes.
feel free to
Mhm.
reach out. You can register online. You can read a little bit more about the course. But I'm hoping to meet up with the Freiburg community one on one.
So
It's
Learneezee is sponsoring this, and will help with the organization, and so that's our special contribution. You can register on our site, and then Reg will reach out to you after you register to organize and meet with you one on one. So. But I'm really excited about this because it's really particular to the cause that Reggie has to bring, other aspects of the rap or the hip hop culture to the world. So this is great.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. I wish I were in Freiburg, Reg, to be able to partake in that. We actually have a new segment we wanted to debut because of your background and having a very interesting background. We were hoping to do a rapid fire section here of questioning. So you don't need to elaborate more than just sort of like quick responses. There's no right or wrong answers. This is more a sense
Okay.
of understanding your opinions on these questions all relate to hip hop. Okay. So the
Yes.
first question is, in your opinion, who is the greatest MC of all time?
I would personally have to say KRS-One. And I think it's because of the way he narrates and bridges our histories together.
Mhm.
You can see how he explores the civil rights movements through his raps and how hip hop culture rose out of the ashes.
What are the best hip hop groups of all time, or the best hip hop group of all time? Group or groups?
I would probably say the most important hip hop group of all time is Public Enemy. And I would have to say
Public
because in
Enemy.
1988, they challenged the powers that be in the US like no one had ever done. And then if you they followed up, it takes a nation of millions to hold us back. The most, in my opinion, the most important rap album. And of course, if Public Enemy put that out, it's definitely got to be them. So I hope, did
And
I answer your question?
yeah,
Special.
absolutely. You actually answered a couple questions because one of the questions was best album of all time, and you said, the album "It Takes a Nation to Hold Us." Is it to hold us back or to hold us black?
It takes a
It takes a
nation of
nation.
millions to hold us back.
Yeah,
And the
that's
last
right.
question is just, what do you think has been the best decade for hip hop?
I'm going to tell you why the 90s was the best decade. I grew up in the 80s, but the 90s really showcased what the 80s laid down. There was never, but there was so much variety, there was so much innovation. You
Mhm.
had so many different styles. Remember, Eminem comes out of the 90s. You know what I mean? He came out of the 90s. You just had so much, Biggie, just the Roots, Black Thought, like all of these incredible bands, all these incredible groups seem to have really showcased their very best in the 90s. I'm getting older, but the era of the 90s, what we refer to in hip hop as the platinum era, is definitely
Mhm.
the best for sure. The
That was the
90s,
prime time for my youth. I
right?
know what you're talking about, Reggie. It was amazing. It was for me. That was the beginning and end of my like. Wow, that was the high point for hip hop for me.
Absolutely. Well,
Learning a
Yeah.
and
little
thank
bit
you
about
for
hip hop
answering these
history.
questions. I know it's hard to come up with just one response to such a tough question, right? I mean, it is very, of course, opinion oriented, but still, thank you for providing that context. So now we're going to switch into some
Yes.
hot button questions. And so the first question is, what do you make of the Kanye West situation, right? Because of some statements he's made and some of the things he's stated, he's had some brand deals and collaborations come to an end. Just do you care to share your opinions on Kanye in general or specifically about the current situation he finds himself in?
Kanye West opened Pandora's box. Kanye had a conversation that the brothers or the neighborhoods might normally have in the sanctity of the barbershop or on the street corner.
Mm,
So a lot of things that he said were actually on point. But as you know, the way that it came out ended up really kind of pushing a lot of people away. But it also proved exactly that, if you become very wealthy in the US, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the power to really, really speak your mind. I don't think that it was fair that all of those companies somehow decided to, withdraw their deals and withdraw their contracts. And the reason being is because they got into bed with this man. Kanye West is not so, he hasn't changed so much through the years. If you go back, to the college dropout, if you go back, to late registration, graduation, if you listen to those first three albums, you can kind of see how he just kind of he evolved by telling you exactly what he was going to become and where his thinking was going. And again, the problem is a lot of people they're into hip hop because of the music, and they're not really paying attention to the political dynamics and implications of the culture itself. So what Kanye said wasn't new to us. Like yeah, that's true. We see who has the power. We see who has the money. Was there a better way to address that? Definitely. But we don't know what it might be like. You don't know what it's like to be in a conference room and you're a billionaire and you're breaking down these doors. You don't know if somebody is actually after that man. You don't know his life. So it's difficult to judge him. We have to
Mm-hmm.
remove our emotions and try to figure out and take apart what is this man saying? Like, if you imagine, most of us might take that money, we might be retired someplace, like, yo, we're not shooting any more videos. I'm gonna be retired. I'm
exactly.
gonna be chilling. I'm gonna be in the
Yes.
south of France. My whole thinking was like, yo, Kanye, you should have been in the south of France with no cameras. Don't tell anybody anything. Don't save anybody. Don't rescue anybody. It's not going to happen anyway. Don't try
Exactly.
to hip anybody to anything because they have to listen to the music. You have to put everything into context. You have to understand the 5% nation. You have to understand the Hebrew Israelites. You have to even put the whole thing of what it means to be a Semite into context. And the last time I checked, you have Semitic people that are dark complected. Why can't we talk about the Ethiopian Jews? Why can't we talk
Just
about the fact that they have been persecuted in Israel and so forth? So again, just because you have people of color that identify with the Jewish faith, what's the problem? What's the problem?
so, as a follow up
So
question, then, do you think had he stated
yes,
what he stated in the media, if it were stated on an album instead through music, that maybe the public perception would have been different, perhaps?
I bet you can find something connected to what he was sharing in his music. I'm sure. Would there have been that much pushback? There might have been, depending on who was listening and depending on what the agenda is for the rap records. Music has an agenda, film has an agenda. If you are a new artist and you decide that you want to get signed by a label, that label is going to screen you. What Kanye said isn't new. It's just that his platform is so big. Listen, let's not get started on what Michael Jackson said. Let's not get started on how they treated MJ. That's why Kanye was like, I'm the new MJ. They're trying to take me out and they're trying to silence me and put a gag order on me. They want to silence my observations. I'm letting you know who's got the power and who's in control. So if Kanye says, listen, why are these record companies putting out rap that glorifies violence against other people of color? Nobody's got a problem with that. So to answer your question, if they wanted to come for him, they would have done it anyway. They would have done it whether it's on a record or whether or not he said it to a crew of reporters. Again, I think that you have to ask yourself, why would somebody work 25 years and reach the higher echelons of power, the highest top rung of the socioeconomic ladder, and blow it all up?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have to ask yourself that.
So, Reg, do you feel also this idea of him having some issues being bipolar and so on, is that playing into what's going on as well? A little bit of a manic episode based on his stress of getting divorced and so on?
Yeah, I mean,
nobody talks about mental health issues anymore.
That's why, hey, rap therapy, right?
Yeah,
that's correct.
100%. That's why we need it. I wish Kanye was rapping more and less about interviewing. More rapping, less interviewing.
Did his condition, of course, play a role in the rants? We would have to ask a professional. Anytime something involves money and someone says, I would rather stand for my truth and you guys can take the money, they are perceived as crazy because most people who work a 9 to 5 are out here struggling. I think he was very, very clear about the points that he wanted to make, but how he made them perhaps might have been done a little bit more politically correct. But if you're not being treated in a politically correct manner, then maybe he is not giving the people that he addressed the same courtesy. In other words, treat me like you want to be treated. And if you have been mean and nasty to me, then I'm definitely going to just let it all hang out. His condition of his bipolar disorder, that may or may not have played a role. We don't know. I'm not a doctor like that, but consider the fact that what he did reveal was true, because nobody they called him crazy. They didn't call him a liar.
No, nobody would ever, because it's unfortunately the problem is when you generalize, or maybe you don't want to name names, and then it comes off as a generalization, and that's also an issue.
But he brought receipts. He did bring receipts. There was a recent video of him where he called out the name of all the huge media companies, and we know their names already, and what and who's in charge of this in terms of art. It's not so much of a color issue as it is about the contracts. Kanye West challenged everybody. He said, listen, I'll tell you what, why don't we all go get into a room, bring the contracts out, bring the average music industry contract out, bring the NFL contracts out, and let's take a look at these contracts, and you decide whether or not they're fair.
Yep, and that's the point that we wanted to bring up. So the next question, maybe should we continue with the hot button questions, or have we had enough heat?
I think this has been a great conversation.
Let's finish off, Reg. One more question. Obviously, it's a question that I kind of address in this podcast with how life is for me here in Germany, but it's nice to have a different point of view from another gentleman from the U.S. How is it like here for you as a black man, a black American man in Germany? You can give your own perspective, and we've also addressed it, by the way, with the Carl-Schurz-Haus through the series America on Fire, discussing the issues coming to bear after the George Floyd assassination. I don't know how to say it anymore. Yeah. So we've talked about it, but in Germany, in terms of the context of living in Germany, it's nice to give a perspective to those who might have stereotypes in their heads about life in Germany for a black person?
I don't know. I don't know necessarily what people see when they see a quote unquote black man. You're going to get all kinds of reactions. And at some point, you might not even want to think about it anymore. You live with it, it's out there. My personal experience has just been there are going to be ignorant people that you cross paths with here and there. They might say something very rude to you. But the truth of the matter is that dark skin has always been connected with Africa. And so the conversation of Africa will always come up. It is like your responsibility as a quote unquote man of color or black man or whatever flavor of the month we are. It is our responsibility to some extent to talk about Africa. And you just have to be prepared to have that conversation. What people want to basically know is this: what are you doing here? People are far more tribal in their perception of others than they're really aware of. So, in other words, dude, I'm from Europe. I'm walking down the street. I'm minding my business. I'm good. I look up, there's a person that's strange walking on the other side of the street or right. What is that about? So sometimes people might come up to you and ask, hey, what are you doing here? And so a lot of the times people seem to take license with one's own privacy. People tend to think that they can freely ask me anything that they want to, like they're a cop. And I have a problem with that. I might be on a train or I might be someplace and somebody will just like look at me and it's not pleasant. They'll just look at you and they'll just be like, how long have you been here? No hello, no what's your name, none of the basic. No, this isn't small talk. This becomes you know what I mean? This becomes like almost an interrogation. And people don't want to address this because people want to think favorably about their country, their fellow countrymen. People don't want to hear the stuff that we go through. They don't want to know that. Like, you can't say anything bad. And if you don't like it, leave. I like that. Leave. Even back in the States, go back to Africa. Go back to Africa if you
Yes.
don't like it. Let's keep it real. It's no different. So people are wondering at the
Yeah,
end of the
it's true.
day, who are you? Why are you here? Because it's my duty to make sure that you're not up to no good. And again, not
It's
everybody's
true.
like that. But that tends to be some of the awkward interactions that you have. People just feeling as if they can interrogate you, ask you questions about your personal life, ask you about your German skills, ask you like, yo, dog, like, I don't even know you like that. If I did that to you, yo, they would call the cops. Can you imagine me? Imagine me like on a train and I'm like, yo, hey girl, what's up? Yo, how long you been here? Like, you know what I mean? It's a double standard and it's real. People think that when they see
Yeah,
dark skin, they automatically have a right to be nosy and get into your business. Mind your business. You don't know me like that. And I owe you nothing. I don't
yeah,
care if I just
that's
robbed the
true.
bank. I don't care. I
Yeah,
don't
So
care. You don't have a right to ask me personal questions if you don't know me like that. And
yeah,
that's my biggest beef with being a quote unquote black man in Germany. Leave me
and
alone
can
and
I
and I
can
will
I ask
leave
a
you alone. That's it.
can I ask
true.
a follow up question though? I'm just curious.
Please.
Just
Sure.
if you were to compare and contrast your treatment in Germany versus your treatment in the United States, is one more favorable than the other, or is it just very different in some
It's
ways? Like you're
different.
saying that.
To,
Mhm.
to me, it's different because in America, it's like that's home turf. Cats there should know better. It's like, yo, y'all know better. Stop it. You know what I'm saying? Here, there's not been too much interaction with people. Sure, if you compare the difference, if you compare the history of the US with Germany in terms of an integrated society, just like England, the United States, of course, is a nation of immigrants, right? So
Yes.
as we're all American brothers and sisters, we all make that up. To be honest with you, the reason how come I still can look the other way or I at least can chill a little bit more here it's because a lot of people don't know any better. It's not to excuse them, it's just to say that they've never been trained in the etiquette. Many people have not been trained, so
Yeah.
sometimes they just have bad manners and they don't know some not all. Some people just don't know how to interact with people from different cultures, different races. And the same thing could be said in the U.S. But in the United States, there's a lot more of us. If you got what is it 42 million? How many quote unquote African Americans are in the states? Is it like 42, 45 million, something like that?
It's got to be around that number, yes,
What is
because
that? Yeah,
we're talking about over
yo, we like
350
yo,
million.
we everywhere. We everywhere. Which is no excuse. What's up? We had Dr. King. We know, we got the Constitution. Blah, 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 blah. Come on. What's the excuse? There's
Yeah,
no way that our country should be divided the way that it is. And so I would have to say that I'm far more disappointed in the U.S., Rico. And so I would say that there's a difference. But then again, it just really depends on what you're out for. If you're out to travel
yeah.
and see the world, you have to be open to come what may. If you're back in the
Hmm.
US, you got work to do because we're still trying to find out how do we live together as fellow Americans? How do we actually live in a united states versus a divided states? I hope I answered
But
your question.
oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Wow,
And
you
this has
had the
been a
number,
very this has
man.
been a very very engaging
47.5.
conversation. Thank you. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Pat.
Thank
Go
yeah.
ahead.
you. Thank you both.
Oh, I want to say, I checked, I had to Google it. It's a 47.5, million
Dang.
Black Americans. Yeah, yeah. You were good. You're
That's
good.
that's a big number. So we have
Hmm.
47 and a
That's a
half
huge number.
African Americans. Yeah. And I have to be one, and I have to be really honest with you. I think it's when are we ever going to get past the point where race is no longer even an issue? When is
It is
that
a
ever going to
construct. We
happen?
understand that.
You know,
Hmm.
I'm looking
And
forward to
yeah,
that
and
day,
so we
regardless
have
of where I live in the world. Yes.
exactly, Reg. Yeah, yeah. I love this conversation. We'll have to continue it for the next episode or following episode, follow up episode.
Yes.
Yeah, Rico, you want to close out?
Please
Yeah, I
do.
just wanted to again say
Do.
thank you. Yeah, thank you, Reg. It was a very engaging conversation. We really do appreciate your coming on to the show and giving us so much information and knowledge about what you do, who you are, and we really enjoyed speaking with you today.
Rico, it's been a pleasure. Patrick, it's definitely been a pleasure. We are. I'm here. I've definitely had a great time interacting with you two gentlemen. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I just hope that I just hope I answered and addressed all your questions because they're deep. You know what I mean? Whenever you get into this thing, and that's again, it goes back to why we decided to offer this particular course because we have to do a
Yes, right
little bit
there.
more one-on-one, you know. So yeah,
Exactly. That's how you
if you're
really
interested,
connect. Hmm.
let's do it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Well, we'll go ahead and leave it there. But thank you guys for the show today, and we'll go ahead
Hmm.
and bring it to an end today. But keep on learning easy, and we look forward
Yep.
to our next episode. Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much. Take care, guys. Patrick, Rico.